Welcome to the Strap and Link podcast, where we cover brands from their inception to their latest release.
It's the Montress Tudor.
Like I said, better movement, spring drive
So,
potentially, Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
Their Super Ocean here. Now you see this kind of renaissance of Tudor. Finally, in 2016, they achieved the spring drive with an 8-day power. The podcast for watch lovers by watch lovers. New episodes every first and third Monday.
What's up, dude?
And we are back.
We are back.
Back to an OG version of the episode or of the podcast. You know, doing a little history, doing a new watch, and we're looking forward to this one. We've been having this one on our calendar for what 2-3 months now?
Yeah, a while. Yeah, we're gonna cover Christopher Ward today. So super hot brand. You know, wouldn't really classify Christopher Ward as a micro brand anymore. We'll get into some reasons why, but they're doing some really cool things right now. We have a watch on loan from them. I'm looking at it right now. It's not on my wrist. We'll get into why it's not, but it will be soon. So yeah, it's going to be a fun episode. Fun episode. I think we've got some unique things to talk about that we haven't covered, just I think with the way that Christopher Ward sits inside of the greater luxury watch market, and the fact that like I just mentioned, we have a watch on loan, and by sort of accident we got this watch on loan that is not one that you or I would have probably ever picked. So it's great because that gives us a different perspective. I mean, you know, and you get to get hands-on with a watch that is, again, very unique. And so we'll get into that in just a moment.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's, I was about to say the same thing about we weren't really going to pick this watch.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the story about how we got this one. Was this kind of a you choose and we'll be surprised? Because I know I wasn't involved in the final process making. I knew, you know, we sent the initial reach out to those guys, but how did we end up with this watch?
Yeah, so we reached out, and you know, watch brands will have, you know, some marketing department or, you know, resource, you know, sort of dedicated to things like these. So we reached out to a counterpart at Christopher Ward that manages just that. Just kind of explained what we do here on the show and why we wanted to get hands on with a watch. And so the follow up was, that's awesome. Sounds like a really cool concept for a podcast. And what watch do you want to take a look at? The obvious answer that we gave them was to see the 12. And I'm really glad that they came back to us and they said, well, actually, they didn't really say that they don't have that or that we can't have it. But I think the ask to us was basically like, what watches are you interested in, if any particular models? And we, of course, said the 12. And then I think we also told them maybe the Trident. I know we gave 2 models, but I don't even have that in front of me.
I don't remember the next one.
Yeah. And so the follow-up was, okay, perfect. We've got one in transit. It's on the way. And then we found out that it was a C1 Moonphase. So we got a watch that, again, neither David nor I would have ever, I think, picked this when we were asked. Of course, we didn't pick it. I've never looked at a watch like this in a store. I've never considered buying a watch like this. I've never worn a watch like this. I've never worn a Moonphase before. I've never seen an aventurine dial in person before. So this, it checked off a lot of first, I think, probably for you as well.
Yeah. It's really funny when, you know, when we first got it, Brett had it for the first couple weeks, and from the beginning, the moon really wasn't showing. And then by the time I picked it up about 2 weeks later, it was like front dead and center. I was like, the perfect time to have the watch. So it's a very cool watch.
And I mean, some of the details, you know, we're not going to spill them here. It's one of the watches that we're going to cover today. So we're going to get into that in detail. But some of the details and finishing, it's awesome that, you know, we were finally able to be lent a watch from a brand that, again, we've never purchased, owned, worn, so on and so forth. Because, I mean, you get to compare, and that's, you know, it's either going to be good or it's going to be bad, the result. And I think there's a lot more good with this watch than bad. So, my reaction to it was positive. I was happy that we got this. Again, happy that we got a unique one. But before going down that rabbit hole, let's just outline really quickly the watches that we are going to cover today. David mentioned earlier, we're going to be covering the history of Christopher Ward and just kind of where they started, how that started. It's again, another unique point of this episode is just that, very different from most brands. We're going to get into some specific watches, namely the 12, the C60 Trident Pro 300, the Sealander GMT 36 millimeter variant, and of course the C1 Moonphase. So we'll save that for last. But the two watches that we are going to have in our kind of watch battle, we throw a poll up on Instagram. We ask you, hey, you could have one watch for the rest of your life from this brand. You cannot sell it. You cannot profit from it. You don't have to waitlist for it, but you get one and only one. Which one would you rather have? So in this version of watch battles on the Strap and Link podcast, David took the 12. I was a little shocked by that, actually.
Well, I want to do it for the people.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, I was shocked by that because our last two episodes both had integrated steel sports watches. We had the AP one a couple episodes back. We did two different variations of the Royal Oak, and then last episode I put the IWC Ingenieur up, and people did not like that watch at all. You had, did you have a Portugueser or?
Yeah. Okay. Complete calendar.
Yeah. So David picks a Portugueser complete calendar, great watch, and I picked the Ingenieur. I'm thinking like, hey, this is the hot thing in watches. Everyone's gonna love it, and it was like
they wanted
70-30.
They were in the mood for a dress watch that week is all it was.
Yeah.
They're keeping up with the collections that they're choosing from our stories in the past. So they're like, hey, we already have a couple diver. They got the AP. They don't need an Ingenieur and an AP, so they went dress watch. That's why you lost.
Okay. Well, then, in that case, I would expect to win. I would expect your 12 to fall flat on its face in favor of my C60 Trident Pro.
And it was really hard for me to choose between, and still to the second, I love back and forth. But the 12 is a great watch, and obviously we're going to go into that. That's what's really shot them into the stratosphere. But the Sealander 36, I really like that watch for just the fact that it's I don't want to say replica, but it's very similar to the Explorer 2 Polar. The orange hand, it looks very good. And if you don't want to spend the money for an Explorer 2 Polar, this would probably be top of the list of what I would buy for the price point. It looks really good. Of course, it is a 36. I don't believe they make a 41 version of this, which could be a downfall. But if you're good with the 36, this is a very good watch.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit bummed out that you took that. That was going to be the watch I wanted to take. I just recently discovered that watch maybe 2 months ago. I will give a shout out to what is his Instagram? Like just average watches, something like that in Australia. Anyway, he has a Sealander, and that was the first time I had seen one, and I had the same thought. I was like, oh, it's the just a steel GMT bezel, that flat brush look. Grand Seiko have some GMTs that sort of mimic and copy that look. Of course, the Rolex Explorer 2 is the most popular. It's a great looking watch though, and like you said, it's great value too.
Look at the price point.
$1,200 for that thing.
Yeah. You're looking $1,200. There is the version that's kind of similar to it called the I think it's the one you're looking at, the C60 Trident, right?
Yes.
300 is very similar to it. So those two, and that's a 42 millimeter. So if the 36 doesn't work out, the one that Brett's talking about, the C60 Trident Pro, is another very good option. So there's a lot of good like Explorer, not knockoffs, but Explorer replicas that you could find for around $1,000. Because Tudor has some great ones too, and the value's there. But you're still spending a few grand. If you don't want to drop $3,000 to $5,000 on that, then this is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, my takeaway from Christopher Ward, both from the Lent watch, the C1 Moonphase, and then the research, was that there's a ton of value with this brand. There's one or two watches that are a little bit up there in price, and I don't totally agree with, but like other than one or two references across the board, there's some damn good value to be had. So, excited to get into that. Do you want to go ahead and jump into history and Christopher Ward? Do you want to save
the surprise for after, or you made the call? It's your surprise. Okay. You want to do your surprise now? It's been hard not posting about this on the Instagram page. So do you want to go ahead and talk about it now, or you want to do it at the end of the episode?
Let's go ahead and save it for the end of the episode. We can save a little secret, a little reveal So we can save that for the end, maybe some other discussion. So let's go ahead and jump into history. Before we do that, if you want to follow us and catch up and vote on the watch battle and see how that turns out, give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, all at Strap and Link. Feel free to hit us up DM. We'd like to engage with you guys. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into the history of Christopher Ward. So the journey for Christopher Ward began on the Thames River in May of 2004, where Peter Ellis, Mike France, and Chris Ward gathered to talk about new challenges after the duo, Peter and Mike in this case, sold their toy company. And that discussion led to a shared passion for watches, and very soon they also learned this this key manufacturing insight that many Swiss watch brands were using the same components from the same suppliers, and that markups would often hit 20 to 30x of the manufacturing cost.
Yeah, and recognizing the chance to create a premium watch without the exorbitant markup, they leaped at that opportunity. Their strategy was simple: avoid expensive marketing tactics that would inflate the cost per watch. This led to the creation of what they fondly called the cheapest, most expensive watch in the world, which again, I kind of wish it was the most expensive, cheapest watch, I guess. Cheapest, most expensive watch kind of sounds off to me, but either way, you get the point. It is the cheapest, most expensive watch in the world. Naming their company then after Christopher Ward, just because it was the most proper English sounding name of all of the founders. And that's straight from their website. So if you don't believe it, go look it up. Not a ton of thought and process into that, but I kind of like that approach. Yeah. And their approach was straightforward. Sell directly to the customers through their website. Don't go to ADs at that time. Cap the maximum markup to 3 times the cost of production for each watch. And steer clear of the costly celebrity endorsements that have really become the norm in the Switch watch community, even for today.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2005, operations kicked off in a converted chicken shed in Berkshire with a very modest start of 2 watches. The first one being the C5 Malvern Automatic, and then the C3 Malvern Chronograph. Christopher Ward embarked on his journey to offer exceptional timepieces without that hefty price tag that we spoke about.
I love that converted chicken shed, because so many companies that we've talked about, they started in some kind of a farmhouse,
garage or something,
or just, in a farm, in a workshop, like up, in a loft above it. There's never been any sort of specific detail about these workshops.
This had to be the stingiest of all those startups.
Yeah, dude.
Can you imagine a chicken shed? Oh God,
chicken shed. Yep. Oh man. Well, to spread the word of this converted chicken shed's creations, Christopher Ward placed an ad in the independent newspaper in the UK, and then waited, but surprisingly found out that actually the majority of their business was coming from outside of the UK, even around this time. And a big turning point came whenever Dave Malone, a self-proclaimed watch expert, stumbled upon this ad for a watch that was powered by an ETA movement. And he initially intended to purchase one of these and then write a negative review on a watch forum called timezone.com. But supposedly, as the story goes, he got the watch and was blown away by the build quality and the presence, it says, the presence of a genuine ETA 2824 movement, which eventually led him to declare it the best value mechanical watch in the world in a post on timezone.com. I'm not very familiar with timezone.com. I don't know if that's still up. I'm not a big forum guy. I think that's maybe a little bit of an older crowd. Like, I know my dad is on forums for Corvettes and that type of thing, or at least he used to be. Yeah. So, not sure the validity of Mr. Malone's thoughts there, but it's a very interesting story nonetheless. And I think it is right in line with Christopher Ward's entire founding and story.
Yeah. And then, between 2005 and 2008, Christopher Ward experienced significant growth in both reputation and sales, in part because of articles just like this from all across the world. A pivotal moment came in 2008 when they established a partnership with the exclusive watchmaking company Synergy's Horologies, or SH. Located in Bill, known as the Watch Capital, SH was under the ownership and leadership of George Bader, who shared the similar vision for watchmaking and business. This collaboration led to the involvement of SH's master watchmaker, Johannes Jonk, who played a crucial role in the creation of JJ's calibers. These calibers became synonymous with Christopher Ward's elegant dress watches, featuring bespoke modified movements seen in timepieces like the C9 Jumper Hour, which was released in 2006. This watch displayed hours and minutes in separate windows, highlighting their innovative approach to their timekeeping. Christopher Ward continued to expand its collection, introducing the C60 Trident Pro 600 in 2009, which is a dive watch that received praise for its durability and water resistance for the value.
Yeah, and we'll get into the 660 collection in just a moment with the 300 variation. And then later, in a very groundbreaking move in 2014, so fast forward about 5 years there, the brand announced a formal merger of these two companies. So SH for Synergies, Horology, and Christopher Ward. And that union marked a very significant milestone in their history. On July the 2nd of the same year, that is, Christopher Ward stunned the watch industry by revealing their plans to develop their own in-house movement, which would be called the Caliber SH21. And that marked the first time in over 50 years that a British watch company had created a commercially viable mechanical movement, which signaled, of course, a new, I think, status more than anything for Christopher Ward. And we talked earlier about how I don't think that it's relevant or applicable, rather, to call them a micro brand today.
Yeah.
Like, I think Monta are a micro brand, right? I can DM Monta, and, we know the people that are going to respond to the people that are designing
great brand
and producing the watch, right? They're still small. You can pop in, see the owners. I think there's something to be said about that. Notice the same, brew the same. Christopher Ward is not on the level there. And there's some other comparisons to that we'll get into with some of the specific watches. But this, I think, is super important, is why I paused here, because the fact that they do have their own manufacturing arm, and then as we'll get into the value that they pack, it's a brand that people should pay attention to. And it kind of upsets me that we didn't look at it earlier, because there's probably a good chance that I would have bought one of these watches if we had done this episode sooner. But all the bitching and the griping that you've heard me especially do on brands like Longines with the way that some of theirs are priced, it's like the complete opposite sentiment here with Christopher Ward. So anyway, to finish out the history there, so after this SH21 caliber was revealed, Christopher Ward then released the C1 Moonphase first in 2015. And again, that's the watch that we were lucky enough to have been lent. And so we will talk about that watch in great detail later. But I think now David's going to finish up history and jump into our first watch.
Yeah. So just, of course, wrapping up the history with their most, I believe their most recent release, the 12. Recently, they came out once again with the still integrated sports watch for the first time since 2008's C20 Lido, and is their most talked about watch to date, obviously, and has taken the internet by storm. And you will see this all over watch forums and
everywhere,
watch websites, watch influencers. This is one of the most talked about watches.
They just released, again, I think yesterday or sometime this week. We're recording this March 1. So yeah, they just released, I think, new colors and new dials. So it's taken the Tissot PRX approach.
Yeah, so this watch was, of course, originally released in 2023 with a 40 millimeter case and titanium, actually, with the case thickness of just under 9 millimeters and a water resistance of 100 meters, so very standard there. I think, that's good to have on a sports watch. Any sports watch should at least have 100 meters of water resistance, in my opinion, unless you're trying to really dress that up. Surprisingly, I guess you could say it is with their popular Sellita SW300 movement, which is cost certified, but I was kind of hoping nice. This would come in with some sort of in-house movement, but it is still with the Sellita movement, beating at 4 hertz. And the interesting thing about this watch to me that I found on their website is it was listed as up to 56 hours of power reserve instead of just 56 hours. So the Sealander that we're going to talk about in a little bit it says 56 hours straight up, and this is up to 56 hours. So I found that interesting because I know in the past we've talked about, whether that's Monta or any of these other watches, they'll say, hey, it's 52 hours, 56 hours, and it really won't be. So this one's either marketing it correct, being say it might be 56, it might be, if you wind it every day, whatever, it can get up to 56, but if you don't wind it for a week, then it's going to fall back probably closer to that 48-hour mark. But I did find that interesting because I think that's the first time I've ever seen that on a watch's website, saying up to a certain number.
Yeah, I think from everything that I understand about that is that Sellita SW300 you're talking about, that probably comes from Sellita with a power reserve of, like, let's say 38 or 42 hours. And then through any, sort of tuning or, obviously modifying and just dialing that movement in. There's a spring connected to the main barrel, and that is what a watchmaker again can adjust that, and then that sort of tightens up some of these tolerances, and so that can give it additional power reserve. If you give it less spring to work with, I would imagine that actually reduces the amount of power reserve. So something to that effect. Again, I'm not a watchmaker, so don't take me at word, but that is my understanding of it. So and that's probably why some of the other ones. Sorry to cut you off there. That's probably why some of the other ones will say 56 on the dot, because it might be like an SW 200 versus a 300, and maybe the 200 comes from Solita with that, or I would just assume that when it says up to, that probably means they're doing some work to it in house. Similar with Manta, I think they could probably do that, and their movements are labeled like the M22 or the M23. They're the same movements here. They're just Solita and ETA movements, but they're putting a custom rotor on it, and then tightening up the tolerances a little bit, and then calling it a M22 movement.
Something, yeah. Very good information right there, man. It looks like you did a lot of research onto that. That's convincing. I like it. This watch, again, like we said, took the world by storm. I thought it was, there's a lot of people online, and I tend to agree, but then again, I guess it really didn't matter. I feel like this watch came out towards the end of the integrated bracelet phase. This something over the last 5 years or so. It just has been huge, with APs and all. Obviously they're still very popular APs, but I feel like that phase is starting to wane out, and maybe I just like the pastel color watches. It hits its peak and then starts going down. I feel like that's the same way with this, but obviously it did not affect the sales of this watch. This watch took the world by storm, like we said, but it was very interesting. When I heard it was coming out, I was very intrigued to see, how well it would do. But like Brett was saying, it does have a vast array of dials: ice, blue, white, purple, green, sunburst variations of all of those I just mentioned. And it does also have rubber strap options as well if you didn't want to do the integrated bracelet. But no matter what style you pick, you're going to be falling anywhere from that $1,200 USD dollar range up to about $1,900 dollars, and that just depends on, again, if you want the sunburst dials, those cost a little bit more, and but it really just comes down to your preference.
I like what Christopher Ward did with their dials here, because you talked about, like ice blue, but then like purple and green. They've got other colors that most brands haven't touched yet. Like I love that purple. It's no
they have
different.
two purples too. They have a frosted lavender and then a nebula purple, which the nebula obviously is a lot deeper purple.
Yeah. And it's, it's probably the same from like my experience, let's say with that pink dial Monte Noble. It's going to be limiting in what you can wear it with, but I at least like that they're not going to just like the baby blue and then to, obviously there's, pinks and every, that like Oris and Manta and, Rolex have all done. So it's nice to see that they are putting some of their flair on it, but I agree. I think it came out, this watch, towards the end of that. I don't know if we're over with that integrated steel sports watch ordeal with these smaller brands. I think the smaller brands will keep doing it just because the AP Royal Oak and the Patek Philippe Nautilus are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like it's a home run for anyone to make it. And that's probably why this watch is priced so much higher than the other ones that we're going to talk about mainly.
I think also the Glacier Blue, which is the ice blue, light blue dial, would have been very well served if it would have came out 2 years ago. It would have jumped right in that baby blue phase of, that Manta and everybody jumped in on. Because it does look very similar. And if you're still yearning for a light blue watch, definitely check out the 12 Glacier Blue. It does look good.
And I'm looking, the mineral blue is 40 millimeter it's on the bracelet, right? Not a so you're actually getting the integrated bracelet that you're paying the premium for. It's $1,200. Like they have that. They've got a white dial. They have that deeper kind of like degradé blue that's going on called the Astral Blue. So it's not only these pastel colors. That's what I like about it too, is that they kind of made something for everybody. Like I said, the green, they've got, a blue green and then a green. And then, the purples, like you said, there's that deep one to kind of match the deep blue along with the pastel. So there really is like, they didn't pigeonhole anybody into what you could get with this. Whereas like, maybe other brands have done it. And then they've also got like the Halo, which I noticed there's some rose gold on that. It's a lot pricier.
There are,
but
I was going to say there are a couple more. I didn't see this honestly earlier, but there are a couple more watches that are around the $2,500 mark. Those all have some sort of gold accenting to it,
and they're kind of one-offs. Like they don't have that textured dial, they don't have the hour marker, so they're they're made to be kind of stand out. So, but it's a really great looking watch. I like it. It's unique. It's original.
And you actually looking, I'm just trying to find the cheapest version of this watch I could buy. You can buy a Glacier Blue, which is that light blue dial on a rubber strap, 36 millimeter, for just under $1,000. So if you were looking, had a smaller wrist, looking for a smaller watch, you could just get under that $1,000 mark. But again, 95% of everything you're going to find is going to fall in that $1,225 to $1,895 range.
But yeah, 36 millimeter, 40 millimeter, $995 on. I mean, you can get the purple, the ice blue, the black. You can still get. That's the other nice thing, right? You can still get normal dials, black, whites, grays, all that good stuff.
But again, this is like I said, the watch that really, I don't want to say putting them on the map, because I mean the Moonphase came out and was very popular back then, but this is what I think really propelled them above, up to a different level from maybe the micro brand names that we think of when we think of micro brands. Yeah,
it definitely elevated their status. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the second watch that we're going to cover today. So my first watch, this is going to be the counter to David's kind of watch battle selection, is the C60 Trident Pro 300. So as we talked about earlier, this is going to be very similar to the Sealander in that this is effectively, it's kind of the same watch. It just has a different bezel, having a dive bezel or the 60-minute countdown bezel, rather than having a GMT that does not rotate, of course. So the Trident Pro, we talked about that watch earlier, released in 2009 with the C60 Pro 600, 600 being 600 meters of water resistance. However, this one is going to be a little bit more civilian. So they offer this in stainless steel in a 38, a 40, and a 42 case diameter. The case thickness on this is 11 millimeters, so it's a very thin dive watch, also having 300 meters of water resistance with an SW200 caliber from Sellita inside. That beats at 4 hertz, as the 300 does as well, and this one has a stated power reserve of 38 hours. So what I like about that is that no matter what wrist size that you are, you can get into this watch, 38, 40, and 42, and it's also very thin, which, I've got thin divers like the Black Bay 58, and then I've got thick, chunky divers like a Grand Seiko. And the Grand Seiko, it's hard to wear it in the winter. You need something that'll fit under, thick jackets and cuff, like wrist cuffs on your jacket. So if you want something that you can wear year round, that's still sporty, this would definitely fit that category. Because as I found, my Grand Seiko is not a year round watch. It's a spring summer watch.
You're talking about the SVG A221?
No. Sorry. I'm talking about my Grand Seiko dive watch. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it's just so thick. I was saying like that watch is like 15.5 millimeter thick. This one's 11, so I can't wear that with any substantial jacket, or obviously like a dress shirt, blazer, you can't put the cuff over it. So this fits that perfectly from like a usability standpoint. And that's something
I like this watch.
I'm looking at more.
I really like this watch too, because it really stands on its own. It's that mix again. We always say, this watch looks like these two certain watches had a baby, and it does. It looks like the Explorer 2 and then an S&P 300 with the big black bezel and the white dial. The white and black S&P 300 had a baby, and that's what it is. It's a smaller version of that, and it has that orange second hand, just like the Explorer 2. But. Yeah,
and the model that I specifically selected. So speaking of dial colors, you've got plenty there. I personally like the white dial. It's just really sharp to me. Similar, you said the S&P 300 white dial. That's my favorite variation of it. I think like it's one of those things that you can't exactly explain it. Like I don't know why to me that jumps off the page, but just something about the white and the contrast looks really great. But in terms of the C60 and the Trident, this watch you can really get it with almost any dial color that you want. They've got kind of this brown ombre, black, the white, like I've mentioned. They've got this sort of reef kind of gradient coloring. So think like blue, green, coral reef coloring. They've also got these kind of distressed looking dials in this kind of off-white cream color, blue with texture and sort of design on it, flat blue, I believe, too. So you've got a lot. And similar to the 12, they also offer it on a bracelet for $1,095. So just kind of the standard 40 millimeter, kind of cutting everything right down the center is going to be $1,095. They offer some leather straps that'll be a little bit more pricey, but the white dial variation that I like is on a rubber, and this watch is $895. This is where I want to start talking about the value, because this watch also has a ceramic bezel. Okay. It's the right size. It's got a workhorse movement inside of it, and it's super thick. You can wear it year round. It's got 300 meters of water resistance, and it costs $900.
It's crazy.
Very few watches at that price point will give you 200 meters of water resistance, let alone 300. This is a company in Christopher Ward that has its own manufacturing arm. We covered that. Again, the workhorse movement. Companies like Manta and Longines are using this same movement, and they're charging you $2,500 for the new Ocean King, $3,000 plus for Zulu times. I know Longines a little bit different, and Manta's a little bit smaller, but still, you can compare apples to apples still. I think it looks really great. It's unique to the Christopher Ward style DNA. They're not copying anything else that anyone else is doing. From this watch's perspective, the bezel is its own. The dial is its own. Sure, the white dial, orange secondhand thing. Yeah, that's a little bit Rolex looking. But other than that, there's nothing copycat about this. And like I said, same movement as some of these other brands, 64% less of the cost of the Manta Ocean King for this watch. So you get a ceramic bezel on both. You get an ETA or a Solita movement on both. You get about the same amount of power reserve on both, 40 hours, 4 hertz movement. You get actually a ton more options when it comes to bracelet, rubber, dial color, all that stuff, and sizing.
Yep.
And it's 64% less than the Manta Ocean King. I'm not picking on Manta, but I did just want to give a reference point for something that we haven't talked about. We talk about Manta a lot. We haven't covered their new Ocean King. But where I'll stop and I'll get your feedback is that it still doesn't look as good as the Sealander that you're going to talk about. For as nice as I think it looks, it's still just not quite as nice as the Sealander.
I mean, it depends on your style. I mean, honestly, I think people that really like that S&P 300 look would maybe disagree. We like the Sealander is a lot sleeker. It has more of that blended in bezel, the brush stainless look bezel that the Explorers and what Tudor's version of the Explorer is. I'm blanking on the name of it, but what they're
Black
known
Bay
for.
Pro.
The Black Bay Pro. It's what they're known for. I really like this one too. Honestly,
it's nice.
I didn't look into it much before. I just picked the Sealander because it was on top and it was the bet. It just immediately grabbed my attention. But I do think this is a great variation, and the Sealander again is self-proclaimed on their website their Explorer watch, and this is a great dive version of this watch as well. So if you're more of a Explorer fan, Ranger type fan from Tudor, more of a ground person, I guess you could say, land, the divers by sea, the Explorers are by land. If you're more of the land side, then the Sealander is definitely the way to go. But if you like the diver look, I mean, this is a great alternative. I think this really helps. It covers both bases when it comes to what you would like. If you like a little bit beefier of a watch, I mean, we have friends that love beefier watches than we do. And I think they would probably lean towards this GMT version, or I'm sorry, this diver version.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great compliment to it. I think that, this is the dive version, the Sealander is the GMT version. So it really comes down to, do you want a 60-minute countdown bezel, or do you want do you want to be able to track a second time zone? It's only $300 more for the GMT that you're about to talk about, but I assume that that's on the bracelet, whereas this is on the rubber. So if you get the Trident Pro 300, the dive watch, on a bracelet, it's $1,250 or $1,225. So it's $100 more to get a second time zone. So really, that's what it comes down to. Is do you want a dive watch or do you want the GMT? But yeah, it packs a ton of value, man. Lots of variations, lots of dial colors. The sizing is all there,
and the Sealander definitely does not have the options that that yours does. It really only comes in a couple different options. The Sealander C63.
And so the last thing I'll say about this, because it segues into the C1 Moonphase, but from the pictures, I've never, seen the Trident Pro 300 in person before, but from the pictures, and then from having side by side the C1 right here in my hand, and I was looking at this last night, I was like, you know what? This looks like a really, really well made watch, because I have the reference point right here in my hand, and I know how well made of a watch that this one is, from just a sturdiness and a robustness. And I was looking at the pictures, looking at the lines of it and the angles and the beveling on the case and the lugs. And if you've ever had a Christopher Ward watch in the hand, I think then you can look at those pictures and you can look at the small details, and you just kind of know. You're like, yeah, this is a lot of value right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. And again, so we'll just kind of jump over to the Sealander as well. The Sealander does come. I did look it up. It's the 36 and a 39 version. So if you did want to jump up, you could find a slightly bigger version. But it's just I'm torn between these two watches because they do look good. The Sealander came out in 2022, 36 and 39, has a white dial, has what they call the Dragonfly Blue, which is just a more turquoise looking, and then it has the black. So if you want the Explorer 2, but you like the black dial Explorer 2, they have that version here as well. So those are really your options when it comes to the Sealander. And then with the case thickness of 11.15 millimeters, so I would say that's about normal when it comes to GMTs. Am I right? What is your Grand Seiko GMT thickness? Do you know, Brett?
Not off the top of my head.
It probably will be around there. Normally I see around 11 to 12. So that's hits right in the middle. This comes with their Sellita SW330 -2 movement, which again is a variation of the 300. I believe that 30 is going to be added in the GMT movement. Still beating at 4 hertz. And this, like I said earlier, says it absolutely has a 56-hour power reserve. And the cost variation on this watch is around the same. I would say the majority, if you want it on the bracelet, it's going to be at that 1225 mark, and then it can go up or down depending on what you want.
Yep. I just looked it up. The SBGM 221 case thickness is 13.7 millimeter thick. It 13. Says a Rolex GMT Master for reference is 12 millimeter thick. Yeah, so this is actually on the lower side. It's on the smaller side. It's on the lower.
Again. That's going to be around. It's going to be just under probably what my Submariner is thickness. My 16610. That's right around 12. I know. So it is on the smaller side again, and that's just goes to show the more compact body style that you were talking about for yours even. So it kind of rings true. I love the Trident secondhand that is on this. Is that on your watch as well? I believe it is. Yeah. Both of these have like the Trident on their secondhand on the back end of the second.
Yeah. On the little side stick. Yeah. Yep. It's kind of nice. I'm not the hugest fan of it, but it's a nice touch for sure. I like that it's on certain models and not the other. Yeah,
definitely. And again, the GMT hand on the Sealander is going to be the orange, whereas the second hand on Brett's watch will have the orange accents to it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the black dial too, and it's sexy, man. I mean, this
is literally it is the best value for if you don't want to spend that money for an Explorer 2 from Rolex. Go to Christopher Ward, look at their watches. I promise you will be blown away.
Yeah, a couple of different recent versions. If this is the type of watch that you're looking for, a sports watch with a little bit of functionality, in my opinion, very useful complication. I love GMTs.
This is the one, especially
nice.
Again if you love the look of those Explorer 2s, most everybody we talk to loves the Explorer 2s. I've maybe met one or two people that are like, the Explorer 2s do nothing for me. I'd rather have an Explorer 1. Very few people say that. They love, the white with that orange GMT hand is just it's beautiful. So if your budget's more around that $1,000 to $1,500 range, this is it. And again, you get that quality. You're not worried about buying some off-brand, fashion watch that might break in a few years. Yeah, and will normally always be a quartz watch.
Yep, and here on the Christopher Ward website, for any of the movement nerds and snobs out there, the Sellita SW330 they say is the alternate to the ETA 2893. So I guess it sounds like from that I would assume that maybe they have used the ETA 2893 in the past. Yeah, power reserve up to 56 hours. I love that, especially on a GMT. It's still 4 hertz. They do custom rotors on the back of these movements, which are really nice. The back of the C1 here, since we're about to jump into that, is actually black, and I think it's unique. I don't know that it. Sorry about that. I don't know if it matches the C1 Moonphase to be black, but for these more sporty models, I think it's just a nice little touch, that they do a lot of this texturing and detail on their movements. So
yeah, well, let's jump into that C1 because I'm actually wearing a watch today. It is one of the fashion watches I've owned since college, a Versace.
I wanted to ask. I noticed it.
Yeah, because I told Brett this when I saw this watch immediately. I recognized the bracelet. This is the exact same bracelet that is on this Versace watch that is on the C1 Moonphase. If you want to try to put it on camera out, we can maybe clip this and post it. But if you're looking here, you see the Jubilee, Brett. You see the look.
Yeah,
it has the exact same release, and even where Christopher Ward's is worded here, Versace is worded right there. See how that is identical?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was very interesting. Again, great watch, great value, but it was intriguing to see, I mean, they're around the same price. I think this watch cost me about $900 back in the day.
But yeah, so I think it's similar. It just, I don't know if it's exactly the same, because whenever I look on mine, like the two links in the center, they're kind of parallel with one another. So I think it maybe is like a little bit of a different layout, but the same with my wife's Tissot. That's a small watch, and that's like a two-tone, like fake, like rose gold.
Yeah.
So it's not that, like saying that and the C1 are not the same bracelet, but when you hold them like in your hand, like the quality and the weight and just, I don't know, can't really express it, can't really explain how, but it just feels like the same thing, which it makes sense. That's what they said is, all these brands use the same manufacturer. Yeah. And now that they have some in-house manufacturing, they very well, and SH might be providing the same bracelets to Tissot. So, it could be that way around, right? It could be that the Christopher Ward factory is selling those off. I don't know. Maybe that's outlandish to say. Nonetheless, let's get into the details and the specs behind this watch. So stainless steel on the C1 Moonphase here at 40.5 millimeter, 13.3 millimeters thick with just 30 meters of water resistance, as you might expect in a more dress-forward watch. This watch has the caliber JJ04. So this is one of the in-house modular movements that was achieved by that acquisition of SH. This is going to be a 4 hertz movement, 38 hours of power reserve, and the variation in cost on this watch is going to be roughly anywhere from $2,200 to $2,500. The dial is made from aventurine, so it is not a kind of imitation or replica or knockoff glass of any kind. So it is real aventurine, and makes sense because this watch, as I just said, is like 2x basically the average cost of any other Christopher Ward watches. Yeah. Another really interesting thing about this is that the new moon that they use, 25% bigger than any of the previous Christopher Ward moons that they've included in, of course, Moonphase watches or complications. And yeah, like I was saying, it's a really, a very solid watch with a lot of heft. The clasp and the bracelet they do feel very substantial. We haven't really talked about the dial, but it's a beautiful dial. It's very deep indigo, as aventurine would and should be. Yeah. And it doesn't really light up that much in natural light. Like, in other words, it never really leaves that deep indigo, that deep navy shade. It kind of stays there.
I mean, it's a beautiful watch.
The dial is stunning. Yeah. To kind of pick up and then close out where we started the show with, this is not a watch I ever would have picked out of the catalog, out of the cabinet, whatever you want to say, because it is all aventurine and moon. Yeah. So there's no hour markers. It is straight up dress watch. I don't love that it's on the bracelet. I think a crop strap would. Yeah,
they have an option, dark blue fine Italian leather strap option.
I saw that, yeah, and maybe it was just the leather strap that I had that didn't match. The shade of blue just didn't match. But yeah, I think a really nice alligator type of a strap with maybe a deployant clasp on it. That would make this watch suddenly look like a $5,000 watch.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the only downfall of that watch is the bracelet, where and it's probably just because I've worn the bracelet, a
yeah,
very identical version. If I've never have, maybe I wouldn't think twice about it.
yep,
But I think that maybe is the one downfall because the dial is so stunning. You're just staring at the dial all the time. And looking here on their website, by the way, they're pre-ordering these things. They obviously can't keep them in stock. It all says pre-order for end of April 2024 for the
yeah,
consort bracelet and the dark. So I mean, these things are flying off the shelf, and we understand why. I mean, it's a beautiful watch, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely know what you mean. I mean, it's like I just said, it's you can't really explain it, but just whenever I held it, I was like, this is the same clasp that was in my Tissot. I
yeah.
just knew that it was like, you know, I mean, I've had a lot of butterfly clasps before, and they've all seemed different in their own way. This one did not. So again, maybe it's Christopher Ward making them, selling them. Maybe it's the other way around. Don't really know. Don't really care. But yeah, maybe I think to your point, it's just maybe that association in the back of your mind that you're like, oh, this feels like the bracelet from a cheaper watch that
Yeah.
makes you maybe think that. But
Yeah, maybe.
if I never owned that Tissot, I don't think I would think
Probably
that.
wouldn't
And
think twice. No. I would
yeah,
probably be praising for how comfortable it is, in all
yeah,
honesty, because this watch is very comfortable, and that watch was very comfortable. So I mean,
yeah.
there was no real complaints other than the fact of I'm like, I know this bracelet from
Hmm.
somewhere, and that
Yeah,
was
and
it.
whenever I have the bracelet off of it and you're just holding the case and the dial, it feels a lot more premium when you're
Hmm.
just holding that in your hand. You're like,
Yeah,
this belongs on a really expensive, again,
strap. Yeah,
alligator strap or a very elegant leather or something like that.
yeah,
So yeah, it's not that the bracelet sucks. It's just I think the dial and the case are so nice
yeah.
that it makes the bracelet
It's
feel
interesting. Yeah.
less than.
And
Yeah.
even the strap that's on the website to me personally doesn't look all very. It's not an alligator
Hmm.
strap. It's just a leather strap. It says premium or fine Italian leather, but the looks of it, I could probably find something that looks even better aftermarket. Then that's the one
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. I'm right there with you too. I don't love it, but yeah, no, that's fine. I love everything else about it, and that's really all that
Yeah,
matters because you can buy straps very easily.
exactly.
So, with that being said, I think we've wrapped up our Christopher Ward watches here. Again, I think the resounding sentiment from both David and I is that these watches pack a lot of value. I think if you bought one, you're getting more watch than probably what you paid for,
Oh
whereas
yeah.
some brands will give you less watch than what you pay for.
I'm changing back to my Submariner now. Now that we're done with that, I had to just wear that for that segment and kind of as a hint
Yeah.
to what our next conversation will be about. It was a beautiful random day a week or two ago that
Yeah.
Brett was sitting. What were you doing that day? Anything fun? Being
Well,
very
I was at work and I saw a text come through and I got the call for a Rolex Air-King. And half of you were like, "Wow, you got a Rolex. That's amazing." The other half of you were like, "Air-King?" Yeah, I was really interested in Explorers. I was really interested in Air-Kings, and so I thought, "Yeah, let's just wait list and let's just see what happens." Definitely did not expect that call to come that quickly.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it was three months,
Yeah.
like
Well,
2 or 3 or
the
4
Yachtmaster
months.
that we got the call was
So
5, and
yeah,
that's a
and that was the
Yachtmaster
same
rhodium
AD.
dial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's a Yachtmaster Rhodium.
they
Uh,
like us up there,
they do like us.
and
I
we
mean,
like them.
yeah, I think we're good. I think we've been good. We've spent money, of course, but more than that, yeah, we've been upfront and
We're
honest.
friends with them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we've gotten to the point where when I don't come in very often, they say, "Why have you not came in lately?"
yeah,
So
exactly. So we've got a great relationship that we've cultivated there. So yeah, anyway, the long and the short of it, I got the call. Of course, I texted David here and I was like, brother, I was not expecting this, man. I've got a 3-month-old kid. This seems, borderline irresponsible, if not borderline very irresponsible to be buying a Rolex.
never.
So you don't get the call for Rolexes often. And when
No.
someone says, I'm giving you the opportunity to get a watch that will not ever be as cheap as what I'm offering it to you today, you kind of got to make that decision. So the decision was
Yeah.
made. Yeah, for the time being, I mean, I'm loving it. I just, texted you earlier today. I haven't taken the watch off since I've gotten it.
Yeah.
It's a great compliment to my Date Just, in that the Date Just is a lot more fancier, a lot more kind of
Yeah.
flashy offering, and this is the complete opposite of that. It's a quirky, it's a funny Rolex that doesn't make any sense in a lot of ways. thoughts and opinions over there on your side? I know you haven't seen it yet, so
Yeah, it's I haven't seen it in person. I know the watch. I've thought the same thing about wanting one. It's is again the Air-King is the black dial with the green. It's the brand new Air-King that came out a couple years ago. I mean, it's beautiful. It's not the 1984 Air-King.
it's
A
not the
lot of people.
sticks
Yeah,
that looks
it's
like the current date just. It's not that.
it's a better version of the Explorer One in my opinion.
Yeah.
The only downfall of any of those type of watches to me is there's no date. But honestly, in the world
Yeah.
today, we don't need a date. We don't even need to tell time. We have our phone. We're back even now, and he now has the newer watch. So to everybody in my life chagrin, I am already on the market for another watch.
Oh, jeez.
No, but again, I like I told him at the time, you can't go wrong with this watch. This is a great watch for the value. I mean, it's if you were saying, hey, I just got the call for a Pepsi, that's even harder to say no to.
Oh. This watch replaced in the week or so that I've had it, it's replaced the Black Bay 58. So the Black Bay 58 was the watch that just any old day of the week, there's no purpose, there's no point to the watch that you're selecting. That was just like the default watch in the winter. All that being said, I can see David over here laughing because he knows where I'm going with this. I feel like my watch collection has grown too big, and I'm at the point where like there's too much variety, and there's a few that are staple pieces we've said I'll never get rid of. So unfortunately, I feel like I've got these watches that I loved whenever I got them that now I just look at them and I'm like, I don't need this many. I don't need to rotate this many.
I mean, I can probably guess, one or two of the ones that you're talking about on your chopping block, because they'd be the ones I would if I was going to get rid of some. And I know you're very. I only want a certain amount of watches that does not stress me out to have to wear. I don't care. There's my Black Bay 58 set in that watch box for probably almost a month now and haven't worn it. I haven't thought twice. I'm just rotating between my Yachtmaster and my Sub right now, just weekly. I leave town, I grab one of those two and I come back. So I mean, that doesn't bother me, but I also see where you're coming from, where hey, if I have though a couple watches that I don't wear right now, which are probably one of your Grand Seikos and the Tissot, if I could sell that for a few thousand and then get one, kind of turn two watches into one, I would definitely do that all the time. Like sell those two, and that'd be half the way to a Speedy. And then even though again that's another black watch, but you're still the watches that we've talked about, your staple pieces that you'll never get rid of, which there are a few of them. Having those plus a Speedy, those can be
that's a collection you'll never get tired of.
And I think that's, and I don't want to say you've been burnt, but you've definitely rotated a lot of those out, where you have your staple pieces, and then you always have like one or two that you just not rashly buy, but you just buy out of a whim. I want this now, so I get it. And then it ends up after 6 months to a year, you're like, okay, I don't really care if I get this anymore. I want to sell. And that's why I feel like you have a lot more turnover in your watches than even I do, because I have a few pieces, but most of those are staple pieces that there's really none I would get rid of at this time.
Yeah. I think at a certain point, if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna buy and save up for watches and finance watches the way that we have, and the way that most people that are listening right now do, we talked about it 2 or 3 episodes back about your watch collection, and you make mistakes eventually, and that's what happened with some of those, like the Bamboo. Just didn't love it. So fast forward, what does that tell me? Like you just said, I got a lot of black dial watches. I like black dials. Back then I was like, I've got 2. I don't want a third. I want to go get a different color. And then I got that different color, and I'm like, well, I can't wear it because it's colored. It's not black. It doesn't fit everything. Those are the mistakes that you'll make. Those are the mistakes that I've made. I would love a collection with 4 black dials. 2 years ago,
you don't care anymore.
2 years ago, I wanted the total opposite of that. And I don't think you know that until you wear them. And then until you get to the point where you open up the watch box and you're just like you just said, Black Bay 58, I hadn't worn in forever. Again, you can't help whenever someone calls you and they're like, hey, we got a Rolex.
You get a call
for
Rolex, you're buying a Rolex.
Yeah, you're going to get it. But before that, and
if you're not, then call me and I'll go get it.
These are all things that you learn. If you're interested in watches, like I think I'm more like of an enthusiast. I'm not so much a collector. As we're finding out, I've got all these and I'm just like, all right, I can't find the use case for my watches anymore. I think I'm more of an enthusiast. And when you're an enthusiast, you can get trapped. Like I've seen some Seikos that I'm like, that's really cool. I might drop $500 on it, but then I'm probably going to regret it. or a Hamilton. You know,
You're just more rash when it comes to those decisions than I feel like I am, where I'm just like, I would love that, but then I'm just like, I would never wear it.
Yeah.
And but I would probably never wear it from the second time I put it on, where you would actually at least get a few months out of it, and then you'll be like, okay, like your PRX. I mean, you wore that thing religiously for 3 months, and then now you just wear it when you feel bad for not wearing it in the past.
Well, I would say the PRX, remember that was a trade. I had a Tissot Gentleman that I never wore. So I get a lot of miles out of the PRX relative to the Gentleman.
Yeah.
And it's about to be PRX season. That is an integrated steel sports watch. It's not the most wintry watch out there. So I wouldn't say that I'm rash with those decisions so much as I haven't thought about them. Like, how do I save my ass financially? I've definitely made some emotional decisions, like the Bamboo Grand Seiko, where I wasn't thinking about, okay, Brett, if in 6 months you don't like this watch, what's going to happen to you? Whereas now I do think about that.
Yeah.
Again, in 6 months, if something happens to me, this Air-King is making me money. In 6 months, that Bamboo lost me probably $2,500. So I don't think that I asked myself that question in the past, whereas now I do. So the PRX, I'm not too worried about that, but it is one of those candidates. And I'm like, hey, if I can get $500 for that goes towards a Speedy, why not? It does become a game eventually of like buying and selling. It's just the nature of it,
Which is why we preached in past episodes about the importance, if you're not buying a Rolex, to buy probably aftermarket more than you buy from an AD.
Buy used and cheaper.
We have great AD friends, and I don't want to make them upset, but I mean, it's the truth when it comes to Grand Seikos or Tissot's or Longines, any of those. I mean, you can go somewhere and buy them a lot cheaper. So when you do buy and sell, you can make money. Where if you're only buying from an AD, no matter what the brand, you're gonna lose your butt every time you're trying to buy or sell.
Exactly. So there's ways. You can apply the same exact smart money financial sense to any other aspect of your life to watch buying and trading and selling. Right. Any other topics that you want to get into?
No, I mean, I think that's probably going to be it for this episode. Got a few things that we can talk about down the road, but it'll probably, we're running pretty late on time here. So,
true.
But we have some things we'd love to get off our chest. Let's just leave it at that. We'll tease it for next episode. If you made it this far into the episode, tune in not next week, but next episode.
Echo everything that David just said there. So stick with us. Give us a shout on Instagram if you want to connect with us. And then just stay tuned, stay posted, hit that subscribe and the like button. You'll get notifications when new episodes do come out. So in that case, you don't even need to follow us on Instagram.
Now, Brett, next episode, are we thinking, we're going to go back to probably more of a...
Let's talk about that. I like your ideas. I mean, I like, best dive watch references.
Yeah, I think let's do an easy one. Yeah.
Yeah. We could potentially do something like, Omega's, top 3 dive watch references ever, Rolex's top 5 GMT references ever, something like that.
I think let's do a Rolex. I'm in a Rolex mood lately.
Let's do GMTs. We'll do 4. We'll stick with the theme of our episodes and our shows. We'll do 2 each. Let's just say Rolex GMT Master, 4 references across the entire GMT collection. So that doesn't mean we're going to go and config 4 GMTs today, but these could be the steel bezels that fade into gray from the 90s. This could be the first ones that were made for the Pan Am pilots. This could be the current day Pepsi.
One of the most underrated watches I feel like ever is the new Guinness. I love that GMT.
Yeah. We'll do Rolex GMT references. We'll come up with maybe some kind of criteria so that we're not giving you guys watches that have been discussed at length on even our podcast. Because I know, like, for example, we have talked about the GMT Master 2, the current model. So yeah, we'll do that for the next episode, and give us your thoughts and feedback on that. If you think that would be fun, we could expand that out to other brands, obviously, to the most iconic integrated steel sports models, or something like that. The best value under 5K, any kind of topical category like that. I think that's what David and I are thinking about. That'll be a little bit more fun for us, easier for us to edit and all that kind of thing and prepare for. So
All right. Well, we will see you guys in a couple weeks. And again, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at StrapandLink, and give us any feedback or anything you'd like to hear on the upcoming episodes through our DMs on either of those platforms. Or you can also email us at, what is the email at?
strapandlink@gmail.com, baby.
There it is.